Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I want to do another trope recommendation video because, to be quite frank, I haven't done very many on my channel yet, and I do have quite a few tropes that I love that I can do recommendations on. So today I've picked slow burn romances as my focal point, and I really want to pinpoint a couple of really favorite books of mine that have this trope within them. I love slow burn romances because there is always more attention to detail for both of the characters. We see development of their backstory, we see why they are the way they are and why they make the decisions that they do. And the interesting thing always about slow burns is that whenever the two characters start to develop some kind of feelings or relationship together, we don't really jump into the physical right away. Most of the time there is a build up, there is pining, there is some kind of mutual attraction that they try to fight for some reason, and then some way after the halfway point of the book we get an explosive kind of reaction between the two that we've been waiting for, and then it's all worth it, the wait and the slow burn that we've had to endure as readers. So yeah, I definitely love that the most about slow burns, and actually most of my all-time favorite books are slow burn romances, so I have quite a few books that I can recommend. But for this video specifically, I've picked 6 books. Some of them I've read quite a while ago and are favorites of mine, so I'll definitely be recommending them more often. And some of them I've just recently read, and I'm going to let you know why I love them and what stuck out to me. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and take a look which books I've picked for you today. The first book I want to mention is one that I just recently read. So it's my most recent read out of the 6 books that I'm going to recommend today. The book is called Home Game. It's by Odette Stone, and there's actually 4 standalone books within a series that focus on hockey players in the same team, the Vancouver Wolves, I believe, that the series is called. They're all hockey players. The first one was called Fuck Me Secretly. I gave that one 5 stars as well. This one I gave 5 stars as well. So if you're interested in picking up standalone sports romances, hockey romances, you can pick up any of the 4 books within this series and you will not be disappointed. But to focus on this one right now, Home Game, this one is definitely a slow burn because the two characters build up a relationship from a very interesting meet cute that they have at the beginning of the book. We focus on Zoe and Ryan, who meet at this cafe because Ryan is doing his tax expenses and he sucks at it, like most of the general population does actually. And he is in luck because Zoe is sitting next to him and she sees that he's having trouble, so she kind of helps him out. And when he sees that she's good at it, he offers to pay her to do his tax expenses, so yeah, so he can be done with it basically. And she agrees to do that, but only on condition that she leaves by a certain time because she needs to be somewhere at a certain time in the evening. Ryan agrees, but things get out of hand with all of the things that they need to fill out, all the documents, and it turns out that she's late for where she needs to be. Ryan decides to drive her over there so it's quicker. He drives her there and it turns out that she's late for getting into a homeless shelter because she's homeless. Ryan feels really bad about her missing the curfew there, so he offers for that one night to offer her shelter at his home, where it's a completely platonic offer, so he really wants to help her out. She decides to take him up on it, and they have a night of like more amicable kind of talks, and she's a bit distant towards him. She's kind of jaded maybe by the fact that she's homeless and that she needs to take care of herself the whole time and feel like she needs to be protected from big man like himself. So yeah, she basically is very standoffish to him. She immediately lets him know that she's not in for any kind of sexual favors or any type of relationship, like physical relationship. And he gets that. He's very understanding of her situation, and he kind of feels horrible that she's in this situation. So what he does is he leaves his card with her, um, so that if she ever needs something, she can always call him. And what happens is she gets attacked a bit later on in the book, and she gets mugged. All her stuff has been taken. She gets admitted to the hospital, and the only thing that she has on her is his card. So the hospital actually calls him as a point of contact to come over to the hospital and just help her out. And that's where an unlikely friendship basically starts. And um, yeah, we have a very heavy topic within the book, obviously, but we also have a very beautifully crafted friendship first before we get into the territory of a romance. That's why it's a very slow build up to a romance. There is a slow burn within the book, and we are really rooting for both of the characters to first be happy with themselves maybe before they really dive into a relationship, because Ryan has his own problems with the hockey team. He was a transfer there, so he wasn't very loved when he arrived at the new team that he's playing for. So both of them have their own sets of issues, and you really root for both of them to make it, you know, to be healthy and happy, and just, you know, before they dive into feelings, to have this fulfillment within themselves first. So I think that this story made me fall in love with it most because I was really connected to both of the characters before I really felt the need to see a commitment between the two of them. And that is, I think, the most important thing for me whenever an author manages to do that, to really make me care and feel for both of the characters equally and not really root for one or the other. That's when I know that it's going to be possibly a 5-star read for me, and this one definitely was. I definitely recommend all of the books within the series, but if you want to pick a really slow burn, this one is the one for you. Book number 2 on my list is one that I read maybe 3 years ago. It's the second book within the VIP series by Kristen Callahan. It's called Managed. And I have to say that whenever I read the first book, which is called Idol, I believe, I was already intrigued within the first book more with Gabe's character. Gabriel, he is the main character of Managed, than by anyone in the rock band that is highlighted in the first book. Basically, Idol is a rock star romance, and Managed is focusing on the manager of that rock band. His name is Gabriel, and he is the kind of guy who is so suave and so smooth, and you really see that he has an answer for everything. He is the most organized type of guy, and you kind of wonder, at least I wondered in the first book, who is going to be the woman who is going to win this guy over, because he is like micromanaging everyone's life, and he is kind of brooding, very standoffish, very closed off, and you just don't know who is going to be able to break down his barriers. And I was so excited for his book when I found out that he's going to get his own book. I was ecstatic. So when I picked it up, I was immediately thrown into that world again, and I really wanted to know what's going to happen. We find out that he is going to have a romance with Sophie, who is hired to be the social media expert for Killjohn, which is the rock band in question. Killjohn have had a couple of rough months, or I believe a year, and they really need someone to polish their social media presence and their image overall. So Sophie gets hired for this job. And the interesting thing between Gabriel and Sophie is that they have a very interesting, awkward, funny kind of meet cute on a plane together at the beginning of the book. And we immediately sense that Sophie is the type of person who can get under his skin. And the romance is really a slow burn romance because both of them obviously work with this band, and it's kind of a situation where both of them wouldn't want to have a commitment when they are in a situation that can create turmoil for their client or some kind of bias. And also, the thing is that, like I mentioned, Gabriel is the type of person who is very closed off, and it's difficult for him to trust, difficult for him to show himself as he really is, to be vulnerable for someone. And it was just such an amazing slow burn. I definitely recommend. I also recommend Idol, by the way, but I think that Managed is by far the best within the series. I believe I read all four of the books within the series, and Managed really remained my favorite within the series. I gave it 4.5 stars if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I definitely recommend this one if you love reading within the world of a rock star or rock band, if you will, but really not focusing too much on the rock and roll side of things. And if you want to have a grumpy sunshine trope as well, that one is definitely present here. And also a heroine who, even though she's considered a sunshine, she can definitely stand her own. That's something that I definitely appreciate within a female character. So yeah, if you like all those things within a book, you can definitely pick up Managed. I can do a video that is focusing on slow burn romances without mentioning the queen of slow burn romances, and that is Mariana Zapata. I think that any book by this author would be fair game within this category, within this trope, but I'm going to focus on possibly my favorite book by this author, and that is From Look Off with Love. I think that this book, I basically can talk about it for hours because I just love it so much. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I think that Ivan, the main character, the hero within the book, is possibly my favorite book boyfriend of all time. Within this book, we have a sports romance. It's a pairs figure skating romance, and we have an enemies to friends to lovers situation, and also best friend's brother as a romance focal point. The heroine Jasmine, she is a pairs figure skater who kind of is having her last win or her last chance to compete in the world championships and try to take the title because she hasn't won one yet. While Ivan has been in the circuit for some time and he has already won the World Cup a couple of times already, I believe. And he kind of seems like he's looking down on Jasmine at the beginning of the book. And they have this banter almost like they're siblings at the beginning. But we very quickly find out that Jasmine's last hope to win the championship is to pair with Ivan. And to her surprise, he agrees to partner with her. So they start to train for these major competitions that they need to compete for until they get to the world championships. And that is where actually an unlikely friendship starts to bud and starts to develop. And we find out a lot about Ivan, mostly about why he is the way he is, because he basically sets up a front like he has like this tough guy exterior, very cold and closed off, but we find out that he is an absolute cinnamon roll. He has the biggest heart of all, and this is the type of main character that I definitely appreciate the most. So yeah, the slow burn within this book really makes you feel almost aching for them to get together. And I love that about this book. And if you haven't picked this book up, why? Why have you not picked this book up yet? You definitely need to read it. Take my word for it. You will not regret it. And if you haven't read it and you do decide to pick it up, please let me know whether you loved it as much as I did. So I'm going to be honest, the next book, I kind of am rusty on the full plot of the story because I read it back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, so it's been a while since I've read it. But when it comes to Brittany Cherry's books, I know that all of them are favorites of mine, the ones that I've read, and all of them are basically at least 4, or in this case 5-star reads. The book that I'm going to recommend is the 4th book within the Elements series. It's called The Gravity of Us. All of the books within this series are standalone novels, so you can definitely pick them up out of order. They're not focusing on same couples. They're all different types of couples within the books. And all of these books are really, really emotional and focus on a lot of traumatic scenarios. So please look up trigger warnings if you're going to pick up any of the books within the Elements series. This one is one of my favorite ones within the series because I think I mentioned that before. When it comes to heroines, I love it when they're sunshiny heroines, but they can kind of hold their own, so they're not pushovers because of their sunshiny exterior or their kind of positive attitude towards life. They are definitely women with character and women who are not pushovers in any way. And within this book, we have the heroine. Her name is Lucy. She owns her own flower shop, if I'm not mistaken. And she's presented as this very hippie-like character. While the guy in the book, his name is Graham. He is an author and he is the exact image of a brooding kind of author who is very also closed off and very grumpy. So we definitely have the grumpy sunshine trope within this one as well. And we slowly but surely see how these two absolute opposites very much are a very unlikely combination for each other, but both of them complement each other very well. Because if you think about it, a person who is very kind of hippie-like, who is always floating in the air, needs someone to ground them. And at the same time, someone who is very skeptical, especially skeptical about feelings and love and about the goodness in the world, definitely needs someone who is more optimistic to kind of breathe more air into their being, into their life. So this is exactly the type of book where you see two characters who have very different lives, who are having very different philosophies about life, come together and see how well they can work out at being together, even though one of them has a very traumatic, very kind of difficult past that they have to work through to get there. So the slow burn really is focused on the fact that the characters need to overcome their pasts before they can build up a future together, but it's definitely worth the wait. So even though you really have to feel the emotional turmoil within the book to get to the place where you see them happy, it's definitely worth it. Brittany Cherry just is such an exceptional author when it comes to the emotional reads. She hits you in the gut whenever she can, but she makes up for it in the end. So if you haven't picked up any Brittany C. Cherry book, you can pick any of them up and you won't be disappointed, but this one is an exceptional one and I definitely recommend this one as a slow burn. Next up, I'm going to recommend The Hardest Fall by Ella Mays. I think that this book is just, it starts off with the best kind of meet cute, the most awkward type of meet cute, but it's very memorable because even though I've read this a couple of years ago, I still remember it very vividly. It involves the main heroine Zoe going to a frat party and then running off to the bathroom, I think to hide from something. And when she goes into the bathroom, the hero Dylan is peeing, so she sees his whole situation there, and instead of running away like an insane person would. She kind of sticks around and strikes up a conversation with him while he's doing his business. So basically, the whole situation is so absurd, but it just fits her character so well. And he also reacts in the best possible way. Basically, she thinks, I think, that she's not going to see him ever again. And he's also kind of the type of person that is not running in her circle. So she's never going to meet him again. So she kind of says things that she wouldn't otherwise say. And then what happens is she sees him everywhere. He's everywhere. It's like almost like a stalking situation. And then eventually they, under really strange circumstances, become roommates as well. So the interesting thing about this book is that unlike the other books, this one is a situation where they kind of friend zone each other, because they become roommates. So the whole slow burn portion within the story is more they like each other. There is mutual pining. There is a lot of angst because you're like, oh, get together already. But in the meantime, we find out what kind of precious two characters we have together, how sweet their relationship is together. Dylan is an absolute cinnamon roll. He's the best type of male character that a woman can wish for. So you really fall in love with them, both of them, before you really fall in love with their love story. So yeah, I was really surprised by this one. I do think that when I read it, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. So if you don't know too much about this story, I already told you a lot about this story, but regardless, if you haven't picked this one up yet, try it out. I think it may surprise you. The last book I'm going to recommend is by an author that I appreciate very much. It's Cheyenne, and the book I'm going to recommend is Look the Part. It's a book that has gone around on Booktube, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely have seen this book recommended on Bree's channel, from In Love and Words, and if I'm not mistaken, also on Cheyenne's channel from That Whole Book Girl. But I've read this book quite a while ago, and I definitely still remember it very vividly because it has an exceptional kind of plot, like plot that I haven't encountered in other books before. We have Flint, our main character. Just to open up a bracket here, I don't like his name. She should have picked another name for him, but regardless, I still love him as a character. So Flint, he's a lawyer and he has his practice somewhere in a building where there is an open space. And that open space is rented out to our main heroine, Ellen, who is a musical therapist. So she uses music to offer therapy to, I think, mainly kids, or was it also adults? I don't remember that part, correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, she uses music as therapy. And that is a problem for Flint because he cannot work with so much noise, the noise that she makes. So he kind of goes to her like a bull in a china shop and demands that she leaves, or that he breaks the lease of her rental space, because he really cannot stand the noise that she makes. But she is, even though she's like the sunshiny type of heroine, like in the instances that I've mentioned before, she definitely holds her ground, which I absolutely love. And the most wholesome thing about this story is that Flint is a single dad. He is a dad to a boy who is on the spectrum, and he has been struggling with making a connection with his son. And this is where Ellen excels, basically because of her musical therapy background. She very easily forms a connection with his son. And I think that everyone will agree with me when I say that the way to a single dad's heart is a woman who can approach their child in the best possible way. So yeah, within the story we have a lot of very interesting situations because we have a grumpy hero, sunshiny heroine. We have, I think again, opposites attract because he's very stuffy and very kind of lawyery, a very proper type of guy, while she is again almost a hippie kind of character, very open and very communicative and very really focused on her um, feelings and happiness and the happiness of others. So I think that both of them really complement each other very well. Like the opposite attract thing really works for them. And again, this was a surprising read for me because when I started reading the synopsis for the book, I remember that very well. When I started to read the synopsis, I was like, okay, this sounds good. I'm just going to pick it up. And then when I picked it up, I was like, wow, this was unexpectedly good. This was really, really, really good. I felt like it was going to be a 3 or maximum 4-star read, but it was definitely a full-on 5-star read. So if you want to be surprised by another book, if you haven't picked this one up yet, please do. These were all the books that focus on a slow burn romance that I wanted to recommend for you today. I have many more that I can recommend, but I'll leave them off for another time, for another video. And I really hope you enjoyed this one. Please let me know if you've read any of the books, and if you have other recommendations, the slow burn romances, please leave them in the comments because I'm always looking for new ones that I can pick up because most of them will possibly be favorites of mine. So if you have any slow burn romances you want to recommend to me, please leave them in a comment box. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.